Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our second Duet review of the week, brought to you by Cup of Hemlock Theatre. I am your co-artistic producer, Mackenzie, and once again, I am joined by the man who does wear film, but not in this episode, the wonderful co-artistic producer, Ryan Borochovitz. Hello, Ryan.
Oh, Mac, long time no see.
Long time no see, I know. It's been a hot minute,
Yeah, we're clearly...
What's changed?
Yeah, it's clearly been so long that we recorded this week's 2 episodes that we've already cycled through all of our clothes and are wearing the same outfits yet again.
Yep, exactly. But today we are talking about the second piece we saw last week, which is Pleiades Theatre's production of Tyson's Song, as presented by At Factory Theatre. It was written by Peter M. Bailey and stars Kyle Brown as Tyson and Jamar Adams-Thompson as Brian. So we'll be talking about this wonderful piece that we literally just saw less than 24 hours ago. It is the freshest one in our heads, but definitely one that has left an impact as well. So let us first go. Ryan, have you changed what you're drinking?
Well, I finished my beverage while we were recording the last one. I had this fun sloth travel mug that had coffee, but it is now empty. But I also have a water bottle here, so I might be sipping from that as we go through this one. How about you?
I'm still nursing my crystallite in my Stratford tankard, and I do feel this one is a bit more appropriate with the words of "For God's sake, let us sit upon the ground and tell sad stories of the death of kings." As this play does get into trigger warning, talks of suicide and assault. So so just want to be upfront about that.
No, of course.
We'll get more into that in. I suppose we'll have the trigger warning in the description down below.
But yes, this play does deal with heavy subject matter that I can understand. I highly recommend people go see this, but I can understand if the subject matter does strike chords with people that they would rather avoid. So it's going to be upfront about that. And
we'll put some resources as well, some numbers to call, things like that in the description too.
And in this case, I don't feel like there have been times where we're like, oh, we can't mention that a show's about this because that'd be a big spoiler. I think this show wears its themes on its sleeve in a way that even though it becomes reveals throughout it that it does engage with these topics, I don't think it ruins the show to know that going in. Yeah,
for sure. Okay, well, Ryan, what is this play about?
Okay.
Give us your classic Ryan Borochovitz consolidated plot description.
I'll do my best, and the plays this week are difficult to describe
without spoiling. Yeah.
But because this, I would say more than anything, this is a mood piece. It is it's certainly about things. It's about a lot of things and have a lot on its mind. But it is very much just that we are overhearing a conversation between these two men, Tyson and Brian, played by Kyle Brown and Jamar Adams-Thompson, respectively. Also, I don't think you said this at the beginning, it's directed by Ash Knight, the artistic director of Pleiades Theatre, and it's running at Factory Theatre until May 19th. So run out to see it while you can.
Ryan.
No problem. Happy to get all that out here. But so we have these two characters who are framed as being like brothers, but not brothers. They are best friends. They have a lot of history together, and the two of them are coming home from a party. They're having a bit of a last hurrah because Brian and his wife and daughter are going to be moving to Vancouver. The play is set in Toronto, and it all takes place in front of a bus stop as they kind of had to leave this party quickly because some violence occurred. Somebody named Corey got socked in the face by our protagonist. This is the second play we're reviewing this week in which people have...
The ascending incident is a punch.
Yes, so that's, there's your link Nicholas Nickleby up there if we want to talk about punching. But
yes.
But so they had to leave this party quickly, and there's a bit of a bittersweetness, a melancholic feel in the air that these two who have so much history and deep love for each other may never see each other again. More on that soon, but are definitely going to be apart. And Tyson, who's the one that is going to be staying in the city, he's gone through a lot. He has been in prison. He can't hold down a job. He's tried all kinds of different things. Brian has tried to get him job after job after job, and none of them seem to be working. 4 jobs. Yeah, 4 jobs. The most recent one was a landscaping job that seemed perfect for him because he loves trees and lilac in particular.
He loves horticulture.
Yeah, and so you'd think that would be the ideal job for him, but he got into a fight with the priest that was his supervisor, and sure
He
enough,
punched a pastor.
he punched a pastor, and there's some religious meditations on the morality thereof, but that's really not what the play is about at its core. So anyway, again, in the interest of non-spoiler, this is just an interesting sort of, I described it as a mood piece before.
Yeah.
It's spending time with these two people, realizing where they come from, and just the kind of, there's a few different plays, the frames of reference that I feel like it's generative to compare it to, some of which I think will probably likely be brought up by other reviewers. 3 other plays kind of come to mind without, in the interest of not spoiling the things that happen in this play just yet. I think just maybe here's some vibes that if you're familiar with these other plays, they could help associate. One of them that I think will probably be inescapably mentioned by other critics is because it was already produced earlier this season at Can Stage's Top Dog Underdog by Susan Laurie Parks. Because that's another play about this interesting, loving yet fraught dynamic between 2 Black men. They are explicitly brothers in that play, whereas we have more of a brotherly friendship dynamic in this play. And it certainly doesn't end the same way as that play does, but there are definitely resonances that I think a lot of people will bring in, because that production at Can Stage is probably fresh in a lot of people's heads from earlier this season. People might be inclined to draw comparisons there. This is a new work. It's the world premiere of this new play. And I think, so whereas that's a play from over 20 years ago, but having a recent revival of it in Toronto, I think we'll draw some comparisons there. Another one that was in Toronto a number of years ago now, it was like right before the pandemic, is the play Passover by Antoinette Nwadu, which is basically an urban inner city Black Lives Matter reappropriation of Waiting for Godot, but also kind of features 2 Black men standing on a block, similar aesthetics to this, of them standing by the bus stop, that whole very much evokes the type of tree that you might see in Waiting for Godot. And that was a hauntingly beautiful production done by Obsidian Theatre that we had a number of years ago, that I think a lot of, even though this play is a lot more grounded in realism than that theater of the absurd take, I think it kind of borrows a lot of things from that type of existential conversation, and especially the way that police are framed in this piece that we will talk about more post-spoiler. I think it brings a lot of echoes to that work. And then the last one that I want to mention, not to just say this is like all the other Black plays that exist, is one that I think it actually is taking a lot of cues from, and similarly talking on a hybrid between theater of the absurd and grounded realism, is the early Edward Albee play, The Zeus Story, which I think, similar, it's a very different dynamic because the 2 characters in that play are strangers to each other. But the types of conversations they have kind of have a lot of interesting echoes, and the way the plot is going could be similar from some perspectives. And that is a sort of quintessential example of trying to marry absurdist, existentialist ruminations with a more grounded American realist style. So, if anyone finds any of those comparisons helpful, if you like any of those 3 plays, I think you would probably also like this. It's worth checking out. That's my best attempt at not spoiling the specifics pre-spoiler. Anything you want to say plot summary wise that you feel like was
No, I think you hit it. I mean, once again, this piece starts very quick, and you spend the first bit kind of awash in very fast-paced dialogue. You're trying to click the pieces together. But then it was funny talking with both Susan and Alicia after the show. Each one
Susan
of us
Locke and Alicia Plummer, other friends of the Cup who are not affiliated with this production in any way, just name dropping them like that, clarifying that.
Yeah. But each one of us kind of had a moment where the story clicked and we got engaged right into it. Like, because at first your brain is like, whoa, what is going on here? We start shot out of a cannon. And like, for me, like, it was there's the moment about where Tyson's talking about his time in prison and how Brian shouldn't be joking about some of the things that went on in prison there.
That may or may not have went on in prison, which is an important distinction.
Correct. May or may not have happened.
Yeah, no, and I'm not faulting you for that, but like, it is interesting the way that we don't actually even know what happened in prison, and whether or not the fact that he denies that certain things happened, that could just be a defense mechanism, or it could be him trying to factually report and reframe the way we talk about prisons and the discourse of certain violent things that happen in them. There's a lot we could unpack, but yes, please, sorry to interrupt that.
But no, like, that conversation is the one that really got me to click into the story, because I just went, oh, okay, there's more here. There's more levels playing here. Like, really got deeper after that. Like the first part, once again, you're just trying to get in. And once you have that on-ramp in, you're locked. This play moves, and it's great that way.
Mhm.
So I thoroughly enjoyed this piece. I mean, just the way Ash has worked this space
Mhm.
is so well done because this is a single setting piece where you do not really get a chance to escape the space. Like you are stuck in this one location, and it's like, how do we keep making this piece dynamic? Because it's two people talking very fast at each other a lot. So Ash found a really good way of playing the accordion of the space of, are we going tight with each other as we're fighting, or are we breaking apart, and knowing where to pull them in, pull them apart was really well done. So I just thought Ash did such a great job of giving this piece energy and pace and not making it stagnant. Because
Mhm.
this is a play that could become stagnant, not because of the writing, but because the setting itself could, in the hands of a director maybe not as adept,
Mhm.
could become stuck of, sit them on a park bench. One person stand
Yeah.
up, one person sit down. One person walk down stage, sit down again. Like just the way you have to navigate that piece and keep the energy up by not only the dialogue, but by the way you block a piece. I think Ash did a great job of that. And I mean, both Kyle and Jamar, oh my goodness, like this is a solid two-hander piece. And it's hard. Like people don't realize how difficult, like people think, oh yeah, write a two-hander. It's easy. It's two actors on stage. It's fine. No, you gotta be so in sync with each other, so on top of each other that you got to move this piece, and they did. I mean, can I agree with everything that Tyson talks about? No, but once again, I think he did a great job of making me sympathize with the person who has had a very hard life and struggles that I will never know as a white person. So I think that's very important for you and I both acknowledge that we are both white heterosexual men. And this is a piece very much about the BIPOC experience in Toronto. I mean, the fact that we repeatedly have the cop lights show up in the space,
Mhm.
and just that ongoing presence of, not even at a bus stop are these people okay. They're always put under the microscope of life
Mhm.
there. So I think they painted very human pictures here of this dynamic of this friendship, and it felt like these two had known each other since
Yeah.
ever. So I just thoroughly enjoyed this piece. I mean, once you click in and get on the on ramp, you're good. And I mean, like we'll get more into this post spoiler, but I think the ending, I'd love to dive a bit more into a bit of the
Oh,
ending there.
I have thoughts about the ending too, so
Okay,
we will certainly post spoiler.
all right.
But yeah,
But for now, Ryan, give us your general
yeah.
non-spoilerly thoughts of the piece.
No, I thought this was a really tight piece. It's quite short and it does fly. Like it
Yeah,
is, often like with a play that it's only like a little over an hour long,
yeah. It's like 80
and
minutes, I think.
yeah, like and honestly, I part of me feels like this would, if you stage this at a fringe festival, this would be everyone's like top pick of the
Of
fringe. Like
course.
go see this show. You
Yeah,
would probably need to shave like 10 minutes off of it just to make it fit
yeah.
within fringe
Which I think you
confines.
could.
I
If you
think you
had to.
could. I struggled to pinpoint what. Like there are a lot of things that feel like they're going in circles, but I think a lot of that is the point. Like I wouldn't necessarily say that there is any fat on this. Like a lot of it is just building the rapport, understanding the friendship and the
Right.
history between these characters. It is similar to something that we just talked about with our previous episode this week, 4 minutes, 12 seconds, that the history of these characters
Yeah,
is so felt. The actors did such a good
yeah,
job of baking in their dynamics.
yeah.
And yeah, there is, even though the characters are like brothers
Mhm.
but not brothers, like they feel like family in every way. Like there's
Yeah.
it's something that to compare it very briefly to Top Dog Underdog again is when that play ended and
Mhm.
it really goes through the ringer. Something that I thought was really potent that I was hoping would happen here and didn't, but it's okay, is that when the lights come up for the curtain call, you see the two actors are hugging each other.
Mm.
And that is just like, after everything they've been through and how they really have to do this
Yeah.
literal dogfight on stage, that like it's nice to know that there is so much love in the room, that they are there
Yes.
for each other and they are supporting each other emotionally. And I was actually quite certain that we were going to get something similar at the end of this. We didn't. The curtain call is a curtain call. It's not the show proper. But so much of this show is about men, and particularly Black men, being vulnerable and caring and there for each other. And that this really, there was so much love emanating throughout the stage into the audience. And yeah, it is very touching. The two performers sell the hell out of it. I think yes, Ash Knight as the director really gets should get a lot of credit for really making this as well blocked and conceptualized as it is. And yeah, I really there are things I'm sure we'll specifically pick at more specifically, but yeah, I strongly encourage people to see this. It is a very nuanced and well thought out representation of struggles of masculinity, Black masculinity in particular, and the ways we allow ourselves to be real and vulnerable with each other. Mental health is something that it's not a spoiler to mention comes up in this piece. It is in all of the ad copy, where once again they don't want to reveal too much about what the show is specifically about. So speaking in broad thematic strokes is usually the way to go. But yeah, we don't get a lot of representations like this. Even if I can think of other similar plays that I compare it to, none of them quite deal with the theme of mental health the way this one does. So yeah, very emphatic recommendation from me here. I encourage people to check this one out.
Love it. Love it. Well, Ryan, what do you say? Should we put up our spoiler lilac tree?
Let's grow the tree from underneath.
Make the cauldron grow.
Spoilers. What do you want to get into?
We're now in Spoilerland.
Okay. Anything in particular you want to start with? Maybe the cast?
Let's start with the cast, because I think when we talk about the cast, we'll get into plot points I have about them. So let's start first with Kyle Brown as Tyson.
Yeah, it is his song after all.
It is his song. It is his song. So, I mean, once again, such a great performance. I mean, he just played Jesus in Jesus Christ Superstar up at Talk is Free Theater. He was in Come From Away, Dreamgirls. He's done a lot of musicals and a lot of great work all around. And I think, once again, this is a very tough character because there are elements of the character I disagree with, him punching his boss because the boss says pull up your pants. I can't sympathize with that. I just go,
well, we are told explicitly that he has anger management issues, and everything he has been it's whether or not you can sympathize with it. I don't know. It just feels it's true to the character and what this play is about.
Absolutely. I'm not disagreeing with anger management. I'm I get it, but I'm also when he's ranting about my job, my work, it's I don't feel that there. But once again, but Kyle's performance and his seething anger at the world for what's happened to him, like his whole scene of him talking about him and his mom breaks your heart. Yeah, that type of thing there. In his sadness that Essie, Brian's daughter, said that she was scared of him. You feel that pain. There are moments where he did such a good job of pushing and pulling me throughout this whole piece of. There were moments where I disagreed with him and went, I can't sympathize with you. But then there were a lot of moments where I went, no, I do. I really do feel this pain and this frustration you feel. And I get why you are walking around with this boulder on your shoulder that you just can't shake. I get it. So I thought he did such a great job because in somebody else's hands, I could completely disconnect from Tyson and go, nope, I can't do it. I'm just not agreeing with him at all in this. I'm more on Brian's side of things because I have been the Brian friend who has, helped friends and have given them money and have set them up with opportunities. And I had been that person and then they flop again. And it's oh, for frig's sakes, how many times do I have to just, but I go, no, I'm your friend. I'm going to help you. It's that thing there of, So, but I just think Kyle did such a good job as Tyson of giving the audience a gray character. So we talked about this in the last episode of gray characters where Tyson is not holier than thou. He is not, the cliched BIPOC character who has been wrong, thrown in prison, but he's innocent. He's got the heart of gold. No, he is a human figure who has been wronged but has flaws, and you can understand at sometimes where he is coming from with this. Not every time, because I do think they do paint a good job, and Brian paints a good job of, no, you don't get to, say, just because you've had shitty life experiences, that means that gives you carte blanche, punch your boss and quit every job. You do have to, I do think there is a good argument there, and they do create a realistic argument of that. And I think Tyson's character and Kyle's portrayal of Tyson did a really good job of creating a gray character that you could really connect with and push and pull with throughout the piece, and that made it so dynamic to watch. So I think, yeah, Tyson or Kyle as Tyson was really well done. Ryan, thoughts?
Yeah, no, I thought his performance was excellent. There was a, a tenderness lurking at the surface of everything he said and did. That really is what sells this piece as a whole. Like the dynamic between Kyle and Jamar, we'll talk more about Jamar in a moment, is obviously so much of what this piece is. But yeah, as frustrating as it can be, like some of the things that Tyson does that you can feel like, you have, your friend is helping you, giving you these opportunities. Why can't you just hold them? Like, he can't is the point. It doesn't even matter why he can't. It's just that he is wired in a certain way. He is struggling with mental health issues that cannot be reconciled. He's not in a position to reconcile. That like anger management is a particular one, and that anger doesn't come out of nowhere. Like it is I'm not saying therefore it justifies certain actions, but we're post spoiler now, so I think the big thing that needs to be said about this piece is Tyson is planning to kill himself. That he's had one last hurrah with his friend, but he's lost his mother, he's lost his girlfriend, he cannot hold down a job, prison has ruined his life, and he can't even behave in civic society without the cops giving him the side eye. He has nothing left in this life, and he is prepared to and planning to kill himself shortly after the events of this play is showing.
Under a lilac tree.
Under a lilac tree. He's thought it through, and he's and this is part of where the comparisons to the zoo story came to mind for me. But he has nothing left. And, we hear at one moment that after he quit his job about a month ago, got fired, but you can't fire me, I quit, bam. He lost his job a month ago, and he spent that month just reading classic novels, and he just
and Harry Potter,
debatably a classic, but he's just all the books that he wanted to read and never had time to, and us and Brian hear that and be like, what the hell are you doing? How are you going to pay your rent? But that's not that he's just a thoughtless, destructive person. He's not going to pay his rent. He's not long for this world. And the fact that's what he wants to spend his last month doing, just enriching himself, engaging with stories. And a lot of the books that he mentioned, like Native Son, Invisible Man, Color Purple, are ones that are about the Black experience, and specifically, the very things that he can probably resonate with in a lot of ways through what we see of his experience here, but not even exclusively. He reads Dubliners and Catcher in the Rye and Harry Potter, which is that he is just trying to get a well-rounded perspective on life. And it doesn't matter that he doesn't know where his next paycheck is coming from, because he's not planning on needing it. And once we learn that, it really does put a lot of things into perspective. And the moment in this play that really broke my heart is when he looks at the drawing that Essie made of him. That's one of the things that's really weighing on his head that we find out in this play, is that Essie is afraid of him. Essie being Brian's daughter, who is this young child who Tyson loves with all of his heart and will protect. And that is part of what made her afraid, is that he took her to the park one day and he was yelling at other kids and parents that were preventing Essie from going on the swings and going down the slide. And he overreacted to that situation and made a big scene. And suddenly Essie, who legitimately loves Tyson, is kind of trepidatious about being around him. But then we see the picture that she painted, that she heard that Tyson wasn't doing well, and painted a picture of them on the swings together, that he was the one who made her less afraid of the swings. And we're still talking about Kyle, the actor, Kyle's reaction to that. And it broke my heart. This was so touching. And honestly, the ethics of suicide is a complicated issue. And there's a lot of different tendrils of it. And I think this play is putting forward an argument is about there are things worth living for, that even if you think you have nothing, love exists. And even if that love is far away or maybe out of reach sometimes, that there is still something beating heart there. But the tragedy of it is as touching as that is, and the play seems to frame it as something that is making his life worth living, it is also questionable, what does this actually change? There are people who will be sad if he's gone, but does that change the material conditions of his life? And the fact that we don't necessarily get an answer here and the play sort of ends in a way, we'll probably talk more about the ending as we go, that prevents us from getting an answer on that, is frustrating but appropriate. And I think it is fitting for what this play is trying to do. We don't know. Maybe he will still follow through with his plans, and maybe especially after what happens to Brian, and we'll talk more about that as we go. Maybe that'll make him rethink or even affirm his resolve and what he planned on doing, because he might not be able to live with himself after the ramifications of that. Sorry, I was trying to talk about Kyle's performance, which is incredible, but it's just hard to do that without getting into so many of these pieces of the piece itself. Okay, sorry, anything you also want to say about Kyle before we move on to Jamar?
No, I would think once again, I just think he gave such a great, compelling performance of a character that has a lot going on and could easily turn people off and not make them connect with him that way. But he does such a good job of just bringing this character in and making you go, oh, buddy, I want to give you a hug. I want to, support you. You understand why Brian is in Tyson's corner. Because as you said, there are layers to him and you understand a lot more about him as the play goes on. But let's get into Jamar Adams-Thompson as Brian, a character who I thoroughly enjoyed. I mean, he comes out the gate right away. He's got energy. He's peppy. He's having a grand old time. He's got these great one-sided calls with it's Nicole, right?
Yeah, Nicole, I think is it. Yeah. So she's not listed in the credits because she doesn't exist on stage.
No, she doesn't exist, but it's Nicole as the girlfriend and it's Essie as the daughter.
Yeah.
But him and Nicole have these great conversations.
Wife, actually, they're married. Him and Nicole, they talk about their wedding,
Sorry, yes, they're married. Yes, that's right, because Tyson misses the wedding. Right. But so once again, this is a different type of role to Kyle as Tyson, where this is a character that has to come in a bit like a Tasmanian devil spinning into the scene. But then he has to have these moments where he really drops in and hits hard. And Jamar does that really well, where you think, oh, this is just a happy-go-lucky guy. But then no, he has just as much baggage as Tyson carries around. The whole conversation about graphic design and, I don't know if I'm worthy of this opportunity. I don't know if, I can do this, or, him talking about the fact that he couldn't hold his daughter until he was locked in a room with his daughter because he was so worried about this opportunity slipping through his fingers like everything else in life. It's just such a beautiful performance. It's such once again, the gray humanity that is performed here is so well done, where neither of these people are perfect. They are human beings who have their flaws and their foils, but they are also people who deserve love and care just like everybody else in this world does. So I just thought it was just so well done of how you're interpreting these characters. And I think Brian is another role that, once again, in somebody else's hands, could come across as the plucky friend who, is very annoying because they're up, always making a joke. But then it's there are layers and levels to this, and it's so well done. You're never not given 3 dimensions to a character. And I mean, the ending, with the pills, the fact that pills get, once again, kind of like the Chekhov's gun, it's you set them up, they have to come back somewhere. And the minute he took the pill, I was like, oh,
well,
where's this gonna go?
Well, it's funny because maybe I'm slow in this way, but it didn't occur to I thought they were just Molly, like they were saying it was. But no, you clued in quicker than I did.
Yeah, I was like, no, they're saying something up here. These pills got more in them.
It was the moment when Tyson was like, how many did you take? How many? He was more concerned that just you stole my party drugs. And that was the moment that I realized, oh, there's more to this. But I figured they would come up in some way because they were introduced in their little Altoid tin. Yeah. But I wasn't expecting what we find out they are indeed for. So that was a twist that did throw me for a loop and then change the way I looked at a lot of the things that came before.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And then of course we can get to the ending because the ending is Brian.
Yeah. Sorry, Jeff. I'll say my piece on Jamar first.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yes. I'm pretty much in agreement with you. Jamar was in a play that we reviewed pretty recently, Migrants, and maybe that's showing up on the top of the screen now. Yep. I feel bad because that was such a large ensemble cast, and I don't recall actually shouting out Jamar's performance in it, even though he was very good in it. So a belated shout out for that show. That was also really good. And you were a real standout, Jamar, in that. But yeah, he is at once a perfect foil and a perfect complement to Kyle's Tyson. And I think that's why this dynamic works so well. And like I mentioned, the history and the love that exists between these characters. And like you said, like on the page, this is a character who could risk getting annoying. But I think Jamar is just so goddamn charming that I never found him annoying, even though I could see how in the hands of a worse actor that would like possibly be an issue. And then you talk about moral grace, the fact that I believe that he has not cheated on his wife when he said that, but the way he talks about times when he's considered it and the way he engaged with certain females at this party, that they were just that, like, it feels like the kind of thing that as much as he wants to be loyal and faithful to his wife, it is maybe just a matter of time or a ticking time bomb until eventually something will slip up. And, he plays with the, I'm a suave, cool guy who I'll flirt with whoever I want, but also the deep guilt that, oh no, but I might be likely to go a step too far with these things. Yeah. And I think he plays that so well. The love he has for his wife, for his daughter, and for his best friend are so palpable throughout this piece. Yes. And it is, I was genuinely surprised that they didn't hug at curtain call because there is just so much love there. And but Jamar and Kyle both, top-notch performers who made this piece as strong as the writing is and as well done as the directing is to facilitate this acting. Yeah. I think these two actors made the piece what it is 100%.
Yeah.
All right, you wanted to go in a different direction.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I do want to talk about the ending because you mentioned that Brian takes the pills.
Tyson gives party drugs,
Yeah, the party drugs. Tyson has him spit them out, like cough them up. But then he still collapses at the end. And the play ends with the bus coming slowly as he is literally ODing, as it seems to be, on the sidewalk.
But it's not even ODing. I think it's implied that the pills themselves are lethal all on their own, that Tyson was planning on taking all of them and would have OD'd, but the fact that he only took one or two of them and is already having this reaction it's not just that he OD'd on an otherwise harmless substance.
Yeah. Then my question, Ryan, to you, because the way I read it, I mean, I think Brian's dying at the end of this.
Oh, I think he is.
Full on, he's not going to survive. Like the bus... it's like a holding of, I don't even think that there is a bus coming. I think that is Tyson saying there is a bus coming. Hang in there, buddy. As his friend is literally fading in his arms. That's the way I took it. Is the tragic mistake of this whole story is Brian's the one that's not going to make it home tonight. That's the way I read it.
I think the writing does a good job of keeping it ambiguous and in that ambiguity. Because on a literal level, the fact that he is collapsing there, the bus may or may not be coming. It may be Tyson trying to create more hope than there is. Yeah. But even on a purely literal level, they have no cell reception. They can't get an ambulance here. The cops want nothing to do with them except for maybe pose a threat. And a bus will take its sweet ass time getting them to the hospital. So on a literal level, it seems unlikely that Brian would make it out of this. Mm-hmm. It's interesting because I don't want to reduce this to that literal level, because what I think symbolically this does is it's about, as much as we could maybe, it's very hard to judge anyone when they get to these lowest levels in their life that Tyson finds himself in, and he has very little to live for as far as he's concerned. Yeah. And that the thing that maybe shakes him out of that is the love that both Brian and Essie present to him, this ship framed metaphorically in that drawing or the painting. And what I think is really stirring it at the ending and even chilling in some ways is that what the metaphor we are presented here is that as much as you might think you have good reason to end it all, you will destroy the people you love in the process. And that is what, even if Tyson thinks he has nothing, if he killed himself, that would destroy Brian and it would destroy Essie.
Yeah.
And so the fact that Brian probably isn't going to make it out of this is the culmination of that metaphor, and it is literalized on stage by him taking the very pills that was going to be used to end Tyson's life, and even Tyson's well-meaning effort to spare Brian from that destruction by trying to make him pop out is unsuccessful. And that's what I think is so strong. And I'm getting chills thinking about it now, but chilling about the ending here. And I like that we don't end with Brian dead on stage. It looks like he's going to be, but then he sort of wakes up and is like, he's clearly not okay, but maybe he can make it. And there's...
Yeah. Well, the fact that they show the lilac tree at the end, that they are under the lilac tree at the end because it fades in from the upstage.
Ooh, yeah. It's
further the whole thing up because they set up that Tyson wanted to die under the lilac tree. So the fact that you have Brian now
possibly dying under the lilac tree.
I think it's pretty heavily...
I think it's implied
that he's not going to make it.
It's implied, but I like that it's not definitive. That there is
it's not definitive.
Room for hope, and even if Brian does die, that still raises questions about what's Tyson going to do. Is he now going to instantly kill himself because he can't live with what he did? He already couldn't live, and the love of his best friend was part of what might have kept him hanging on, and now the absence of that could be what tips him over back to the thing he'd already planned to do. But also, there's maybe hope that Brian is this sort of sacrificial lamb that will maybe reinvigorate the meaning that Tyson finds in his own life, that his plans to kill himself have wrought so much destruction that maybe that will be the thing that prevents him from going through with it. I like that the end doesn't give us these answers because so many plays, especially plays like this that are about unflinching looks at the Black experience, they end tragically in so many ways. Top Dog, Underdog, and Passover, the two plays that I compare this to, both end with one of our main characters dying on stage, and the other one holding them in pieta pose, as we sort of get similar here too. And as a result, I like that there is hope that Brian might make it, even if symbolically it feels unlikely and literally it feels unlikely, just because so many of these plays end that way. In Top Dog, Underdog, spoilers for all his other plays, but in Top Dog, Underdog, it is the tragedy of Blacks often kill other Blacks, and that it is just these cycles of violence that exist within the community that all as a result of all the forces that are brought upon them. That and in Passover, it is the police officer you think is going to be the one to kill one of these characters, but in the end, it's actually the well-mannered white man, and it's excellent play that everyone should read and check out, and if it's ever revived, please go see. But the fact that here it is not an act of malicious violence like it is whether it is done from your brother, a literal brother in the case of Top Dog, Underdog, or from a malicious force of whiteness, which is certainly a problem that does have a disproportionately high body count when it comes to these types of communities. That I'm not saying I'm glad that they're not killed by the white police officer, because that would be a very true to life thing, and with the way that things were getting framed, that's where I sort of thought it was going. But the fact that it is the self-destructiveness is what brings about this ending here. I kind of like that we are definitively ending that in tragedy, even if the tragedy looms large over it. So sorry, I'm rambly here, but it's generating all these kind of complicated thoughts that I think are, hard to put into concise words. Anything you want to add to that, or anything?
No, I mean, once again, this piece is just so well done, and I do think you're right. The tragedy that is depicted of these cycles that are found within the BIPOC community are very well handled here. And once again, Peter and Bailey did such a good job of not stereotyping it, but also not shying away and going, no, it doesn't happen. It's no, it goes, no, there's these cycles of violence and pain are going on. And the fact that, as you said, within the sad situation of completion of suicide, it is not just the one person who is completing the suicide. It is the ripple effects of the people around them that get sucked in to this, and the fact that, Brian is the one that ultimately does get sucked in and really sucked into this in a very tragic way that Tyson never envisioned happening because, how could he have known that, Brian was going to sneak the pills? The tragedy of that situation there. It's one of those things of just, I think it's very well done, the way that whole concept is handled. And as you said, in lesser hands, it could become very generic, very, as I said in our last episode, Degrassi-ish. Or like I hate bashing on that show because it did give a lot of Canadians a lot of work. It kicked off a lot of careers, but it was very high schooly. Like somebody's got the drug problem. Somebody is experiencing racism by the cops.
This play definitely is not Degrassi. I'm not saying you were saying it is, but this is, for anyone who didn't watch the last episode, it is clear why we're bringing that up. Like, don't dwell on that comparison.
But it's the whole thing of like both these plays that we've seen this week, this past week, do have the line they have to walk of, if you go too far one way, it becomes very Degrassi soap opera cliche, but in good hands, this work is elevated to a next level. And I would say both 4 minutes, 12 seconds and Tyson's song that we're talking about now have great teams and great casts behind them that push this piece into a space that leaves such a strong impact and leaves you going, oh my God, all these characters are going through so much and are experiencing so much in this and are just so complex. Like they're not easily boxable. Each one of these characters has flaws and foils and are so well done. So I just think overall, it's just a beautiful, well done piece. I mean, Ryan, do you have more to add?
I have a topic of discussion I'd love to raise if you're on board for a little more.
Sure.
Tyson's song, the title. Thoughts?
It didn't make sense to me at first.
Mm-hmm.
However, they do bring up when they're talking about the Essie is scared of Tyson. Mm-hmm. And Tyson says, why? He says, well, it's because you talk to yourself. Mm-hmm. And he goes, well, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I'm singing a song. And then, of course, I think the song that it's supposed to be is that one that they sing at the end, as well as what Brian sings to Essie on the phone.
Which is not a song that I'm familiar with. I couldn't quite place even if those two were the same song. They
were the same song. Yeah, they were the same song that
mm-hmm.
gets sung twice. So, and it's clearly a song that they both have grown up with because it's something that Brian has passed down to his daughter and does voices with, but it's one that Tyson knows as well. So, yeah, I don't know if I would have called it Tyson's song because I don't think it quite fits. Like I would have maybe done something with either a lilac tree in the title or something about a bus. I don't know. Something, I don't know if the title's quite there, but I also get where they're going with it. Mm-hmm. But it did, until they had the full conversation about it toward the end of the piece, I was for a long time going, why is this called Tyson's song? What is it about this being Tyson's song? I don't know, Ryan, what do you think?
Well, it's so interesting to me because this is a two-hander and both actors are on stage equal amount of time. They both feel like protagonists, and centering Tyson in the title in this way makes it seem like the play is directing us to view him as more protagonistic, that he is the central figure and Brian's there to hold the space. Interestingly, there is another pretty famous play titled Brian's Song, made into an even more famous movie. So it's interesting that those are the two names of the characters, and the one whose title, who's not centered in the title, shares the name with another play titled Brian's Song. So by putting Tyson's song in the title, it kind of really does direct our focus on Tyson. Mm-hmm. And it is, I think very much, even though both characters are going through a lot,
I do think it is Tyson's story.
It is his journey more so than anything. As much as Brian is grappling with his own things, a lot of it is in relation to and in service of Tyson's journey. Something that why I wanted to raise this as a discussion is I don't know if you had a chance to read Peter's playwright's note here in the program. But
I read it last night, but I haven't gone back
to it. I'll read a small passage of it because he reveals that he had another idea for the title in the first draft that he ultimately decided against, which I will read the section here. The original title of this play was An Odyssey in Black. I had recently read the Odyssey and couldn't help feeling just like this man, tired, wounded, caring, misunderstood, ignored, flawed, loving, but determined to find his way home. I see Tyson and Brian as men trying to find a way through. I wrote Tyson's song because I believe there was a need for a new kind of conversation. It goes on, but just I'll end the quote there. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that original title, An Odyssey in Black? If you had encountered this play under that title, would it have changed the way you thought about it?
I like the Odyssey part. In Black, I think it's a bit too on the nose, like calling it something maybe like Bus Stop Odyssey. I don't know. Something like that because I do like the idea of getting Odyssey in there, because I do think this does feel like the Odyssey. It does feel like this big epic character dissection.
I actually disagree with that, but let me please go. I was kind of shocked when I read that in the program. I was like, the Odyssey? This? Like, and that's not like Odyssey is a classic work of literature, and this is a small story about two men. Like, it's structure-wise.
But it's a story about two men who are warring it out, as you said, kind of scrapping it out in the story. But then also you have Tyson, who is reading these great works of classic literature in the library, as you said, trying to well-round himself before he completes suicide. So maybe they would have had to throw in a line saying that he did read the Odyssey in the library.
Ironically, he reads Dubliners, but not Ulysses, which is like, again, like I think the fact that was chosen feels like they're deliberately not trying to signal the Odyssey. And it's funny because I really, this is nothing against this play at all, but I don't think it's an Odyssey. Like an Odyssey it connotes an epic journey of going place to place. And like, I know James Joyce himself, who is signaled in this play, deconstructed the idea of what could be an Odyssey. Can a strange little man spend his day in Dublin and pattern out the beats of Odysseus's journey getting home from the Trojan War? But this play, as far as I can tell, isn't doing that. Like, it's not trying to showcase that, and it doesn't have to be as on the nose about it as something like James Joyce's Ulysses is, where it is that you can chapter by chapter go down, and these are equivalents of the episodes from the Odyssey. But this isn't an epic story. It is small in scope. It doesn't mean it's not about a lot, but there is a difference between dramatic storytelling and epic storytelling, and that has been problematized. And people like Brecht the skater who Brecht stole it from, have tried to kind of put epic storytelling into the medium of theater, saying that theater, even if it's very well suited to dramatic storytelling, doesn't have to be limited to drama. But this is not epic theater, as far as I can tell, and it is not an epic story. And I don't very curious. Like, I see that, again, the parts that I quoted in here is that this is about a man where, like, Peter identified in the character of Odysseus that he's tired, wounded, caring, misunderstood, ignored, flawed, and loving, but determined to find his way home. And I guess that's true, but does the journey toward home an Odyssey make? And what does that home even look like in this context? Like, I am glad that he did change the title. I don't know how I feel about Tyson's song as the title. I think it works, but I think it's interesting. There's actually the dance show, the Dice, it was called, Ex Dice, that we reviewed. Maybe it's stronger on the screen, the Guillaume Cote's company. That also had something in the program note that said this piece was inspired by Homer's Odyssey. And I remember, I think I said in that episode, and granted my dance literacy is not great, so I struggled to find the connections in that piece, that I remember thinking, like, if I wasn't told that this was based on the Odyssey, there's nothing in the piece that would signal to me this connection. But being signaled to it in the program unlocks ways that I can try to make meaning from that piece.
Right.
This piece, because it is not told through the abstract language of dance and is therefore a lot more literal in what it's presenting here, I feel a little more confident saying that I don't feel like it is an Odyssey, and therefore I'm glad that the title isn't prompting us to draw those comparisons, even if I feel like this program note is still retroactively trying to do that. And this isn't like a big thought, or it's certainly not a critique against the show, but it's something that I think about, because the titles we choose, the things we paratextually frame the play as by putting in something that people will read in the audience before they see it, are part of the story. And that's not to say that Peter's wrong for drawing this connection. It's what inspired him perhaps to write this piece and write it the way he did, but a starting point isn't an end point. And I think this play became something very different from the Odyssey that he maybe was interested in exploring at the beginning.
Fair. I mean, like, both titles I think are interesting. I mean, Tyson song's the one that you're kind of waiting for it to click. It's kind of like there's that one that you and I saw with the lighthouse on the island.
Oh
With the
yeah,
ghost.
Caligula's Exiles. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. We're kind of going, where does this tie into this?
Mhm.
So the nice thing is Tyson's name is in the title, and he is our focal point character of the show. So, but it's like the song part was the part I was like, where's this going to click in with the song? Because we haven't had anything mentioned about a song yet,
Mhm.
where it's like they never mentioned that he was in the library writing lyrics, or like while in prison he was writing poetry to like get to help himself through that experience. Like there was never anything like that there, so I was waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. So that's why I'm like between the two, I go up in the air. I mean, I think there's a third option there that Peter could
And
potentially find and make it.
but I also think that by putting song in the title sort of isn't just saying that there is a song that belongs to Tyson that's in the play. It's also framing the play as this is Tyson's song, like a song of Ice and Fire.
Right.
That as soon as you put a song in the
Yeah.
title, it kind of turns it into we are framing a genre of this piece, that it isn't just a play, it's also a song. And
Right.
to compare it to the Odyssey again, that was a story that was originally told in an oral tradition and was maybe had some kind of more lyrical elements in that way that would have originally presented it. So like it, or even if the title was something like the love song of Tyson, like that would have also changed the way we like the love song of Jane Alfred Prufrock would maybe be a comparison that we would maybe bring to mind there. That what does it mean to call this a love song, and what do we think there? But there is so much love beating in it that I think there is something fitting about framing the play as a song, and then it becomes a literal manifestation in the song itself that ties that together. I don't know. There's a lot of thoughts here. I don't know how I feel about it. This is something that I'll probably keep thinking about. But
Ruminate. Let it gestate.
Mm-hmm. We just saw this play less than 13, 14 hours ago, as you kind of
exactly. Yeah, we've seen it less than 24 hours ago.
There was time to keep thinking about this. I will keep thinking about this show a lot, not just because of the title, because there's so much here that I'll remember individual elements or pieces of it that I'll think like, oh yeah, that was a really interesting piece, or how does that reframe what I think about this? We didn't even talk about things like their Bible verse contest.
Yeah, I mean, once again, that's that's such a fun moment of them quoting Bible verses, and I'm sure there's way more dramaturgy you could do in looking at the Bible verses themselves and the choices that they're choosing as the Bible verses and how that reflects their characters. But I'd have to read the script. So I mean, I would love to read this script and do like a dramaturgical study on it, because I'm sure Peter put a lot of thought into who's choosing what verses there, and how they kind of banter off each other that way.
Yeah, something about the Bible verses, like, yes, I'm sure there is meaning to the chosen verses that I would need to pour over the script to really think through. But something that struck me as very interesting about that segment is, okay, well, first of all, it feels like we saw Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead together, and there's a scene in that where the two have like a tennis match of asking each other questions, sort of similar to the questions only improv game, and that kind of goes back and forth like that, and this sort of invoked that in a lot of ways, which is another play that dabbles with absurdism. So I think that's kind of an interesting comparison that maybe I only came to mind because I saw that so recently, but that I think was interesting. But the thing that I thought was really smart about the Bible verse back and forth competition is Brian says to Tyson that if you can name 3 Bible verses, I will give you $50.
Right.
And Tyson says, nah, I'm not interested in that. Let's go back and forth. And the first one to draw a blank does 50 push-ups.
Right.
Tyson successfully does 3 Bible verses. He trips up on the 4th. He could have gotten the $50, but the fact that he doesn't care about that one, because what does he need $50 for? He's going to die pretty soon, as far as he's concerned. Is so that's sort of an interesting telling thing that you sort of think back at after you find out what he's going through, that he doesn't care about the money. It's more important that this becomes a friendly competition between them, that it's not about just I'll prove to you that I can name 3 and therefore you reward me for that. It's no, I think I know more than you do, and we are going to do this gentleman's wager where one of us has to do the physically demanding thing if we are inferior in this regard. I think there's just so much you could read into his decision to do that And yeah, like, and the fact that the play signals that he could have gotten the first reward but chose to do it the other way, and he fails in that. There's like a lot you can read into that, but I think is really interesting. And like you said, going into the specifics of the Bible verses, I'm sure will unlock even more meaning.
Yeah, I mean, this is just such a layered piece, just like 4 minutes 12 seconds that we talked about on Wednesday. It's one of those things of both these plays are onions, and where you're really just ripping layer after layer after layer, exposing the nerves that these people have, the raw nerves that are just under the skin that are being exposed. So I just thought so well done, like just so well done. I just said this play is running till May the 19th. So go on out, get your ticket. I mean, Ryan, do you have any more final thoughts to say before we sign off?
I feel like there's so many more things I could talk about, but it would just be more heaps upon heaps. So again, just know that what we have said here is not an exhaustive list of everything that's interesting or exciting about this piece. Go see for yourself and get in the comments if there's other
there's a whole conversation about manhood and like.
Well, this manhood is huge in this.
And like, what does it mean to be a man?
Yeah. Also, just the accent part. For the most part, the conversation is unaccented, but every so often they slip into this kind of Toronto man's vaguely, Afro-Caribbean dialect. I'm not a dialect expert, so I couldn't quite identify, but the way they slip into it is also a testament to their familiarity and dynamic and code switching with each other. Not that they need to code switch with each other, but the fact that it is, if you ever talk, like my mom, her first language wasn't English. She was Hungarian, was her first language, and anytime she's having a conversation with other people in her family who know Hungarian, which does not include myself, she switches back and forth between English, even though they're both fluent in Hungarian. So it's something like that is like, I think, anyone who kind of has like an accentation or a language thing, like can relate to the way that these characters do talk to each other. I don't even think there's a dialect coach credited on here, but like he must have done a great job in rehearsal, really nailing that down, and peppered it in so fluidly for performance. Again, we can talk about more and more things.
More. This is a piece, once again, layers upon layers here.
Yeah.
Either way, go out and see it. Round and I both thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a beautifully well done piece. Brava to the whole team. But Ryan, before we go though, as we said, running till May the 19th over at Factory Theatre. But where can people find and follow you?
Yeah, no need to find and follow me personally, but if you like me and all my theater thoughts, they tend to live here on The Cup. That's the show you're watching right now. We're Cup of Hemlock Theatre on YouTube, where you might be watching this. We're the Cup of Hemlock Theatre podcast and all the podcast places where you might be listening to this. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at COH Theatre. Yeah, like, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. I cheers both of my cups to you. How about you, Matt?
Thank you. And I cheers my cup to you, sir. You can follow me at Mackenzie on all social media platforms. Follow my other theater antics over at Before the Downbeat Musical Podcast, where we talk all about musicals. This season, we've done The Color Purple. We've done, we just did La Cage aux Folles. We've done Joseph the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Like, we've spanned the spectrum this season on episodes. So it's been a lot of fun diving into different pieces for sure to kind of see what's there in that world. So go down over there, check it out. And you also check out all the great stuff Ryan and Jill have done on that podcast too, because they've been on several episodes as well. So there we go. All right, everybody, stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you all in our next episode. Bye. Cheers.